Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the White House Council for Community Solutions. My name is Leslie Boissiere and I'm the Executive Director for the Council, and we are now in session. Our meeting is being streamed live this morning on the White House website, where members of the public can submit comments and questions. We won't be answering questions this morning, but we will periodically post responses to your frequently asked questions. And I now turn the meeting over to the Council Chair, Patty Stonecipher.
Welcome, everybody in this room as well as those online. Our opportunity here today, 10 months after the beginning of this council, is to really try to deepen our recommendations and our efforts around our twofold vision. That vision, as we said from the very beginning, is that every community will have the public will and the tools to come together to address their biggest problems. And by come together, we mean all sectors, all citizens, taking responsibility and action on behalf of the most challenging issues in their community. Our second goal, given the moment that we are in, the times that we are facing and the problems that we hear from communities, is to focus that same belief on the power of community, on the power of all hands on deck, on one issue that we believe deserves the attention of this nation, deserves the attention of our communities, deserves the attention of this government, and that is the challenge facing youth age 16 to 24, almost 4 million, possibly as many as 5 million of whom are out of work and out of the education system. These are young people that we know very well want the same things that you and I want: the opportunity for a good job, the opportunity for adequate education to ensure they can continue to hold and contribute to that good job and a good career that can allow them to have the kind of family, the kind of contribution to community and country that we all want. And so our focus for this council is twofold: on the big challenges of communities seeking solutions and on the specific challenge of addressing the needs of the youth 16 to 24 who particularly need to connect to the right kinds of education and the right opportunity for employment. So without further ado, we will move into the content of this council and how we have proceeded to learn more about that. With kicking off with our first meeting in February, we began the process of learning, assessing, and understanding from public listening sessions, from youth sessions, from study, from research, what really is the situation in this country around community solutions and around disconnected youth. And we came into our June meeting with a very strong awareness of what is and some emerging ideas of what could be. We'll spend today's meeting looking at what each of the work groups have come forward with their beliefs in what could be around community solutions and around solutions that communities can apply to create greater opportunity for these youth. So I thank you all for being here, and I think it will be a very interesting session. I want to make sure to introduce a few people, some who are new to this room and some who are not. But first, let me introduce Jonathan Greenblatt. He's a Special Assistant to the President and the new Director of the Office of Social Innovation and Civic Participation at the White House. So Jonathan, welcome. Jonathan's team is critical to our efforts, and in fact I'm sure that Marta is somewhere in this room, but she has been a very important partner in our efforts. I also want to welcome and thank Robert Velasco for his second appearance in this council meeting. Robert is the acting CEO of the Corporation for National and Community Service, and I wanted to ask him if he might want to make a few remarks.
Thank you, Patty. Good morning, everyone. Patty, thank you for that introduction, for your steadfast leadership on this White House Council, and to the council members who are also impassioned thought leaders and practitioners for your service and commitment to fostering community solutions. The Corporation for National and Community Service, the lead federal agency for national service and volunteerism, is honored to work with this council to strengthen community collaboratives and create opportunities for young Americans. We all know that today's social and economic challenges are complex and can't be solved by the government alone or just through innovative approaches. What we need is an all-hands-on-deck movement to shape solutions that work. And at the center of those solutions are engaged and empowered citizens and communities that are building a foundation for long-term growth and opportunity. At CNCS, we put that philosophy into practice by engaging 5 million Americans in results-driven service to solve local and national problems through our programs like AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, the Social Innovation Fund, and other programs. We provide people power to more than 70,000 community organizations to help them meet pressing needs. For many CNCS participants, and especially for young and low-income adults facing the toughest prospects for employment, National Service offers a pathway for economic opportunity by providing valuable work, experience, career skills, and educational support. By helping at-risk youth graduate, go to college, and find productive employment, National Service programs such as AmeriCorps' NCCC, which current enrollment represents 30% opportunity youth with the goal of up to 50% for opportunity youth enrollment, and to our AmeriCorps grantees such as Youth Build. These National Service programs save taxpayer dollars that may otherwise have been spent on prisons, rehabilitation, and other social services. We believe that service is a solution. Your service, the service of organizations and corporations that will work with you, and the more traditional service of volunteers across the country play a direct role in strengthening our nation. And we are counting on you to drive this effort, as many of the best solutions come from outside of Washington. That's why the recommendations you put forth today are essential to our national priorities. By catalyzing all sectors through shared responsibility, we can work together to prepare adolescents and young adults to live productive and prosperous lives. So in fulfillment of our responsibility, we offer the following resources to support your vision. First, CNCS maintains a vast collection of tools that helps individuals, organizations, and communities maximize local assets to address community needs. We offer our nationalservice.gov and serve.gov websites to host and highlight the collection of your best practices, exemplars, and success stories. On a similar note, we offer to further amplify these efforts through our agency's various outreach and social media venues. Third, CNCS works with all sectors and all levels of government to maximize our impact through strategic partnerships. For example, we've partnered with Mentor, the Harvard School of Education, and the White House to create a corporate mentoring challenge that provides caring adults in the lives of at-risk youth. And through our Billing Plus Change initiative, we're leveraging the professional skills of major corporations through pro bono services to help nonprofits better achieve their missions. And we're working with other federal agencies on the America's Great Outdoors Council to provide youth with opportunities for service and employment in environmental stewardship. And so we look forward to supporting your recommendations through existing and new cross-sector, corporate, community, and interagency collaborations that will further connect young people to the opportunities that they need most. And finally, we'll work with the White House and the administration to convene opportunities for policy alignment that better serves the community collaboration and youth opportunity. Thank you, and I look forward to continuing to work together with you.
Robert, that's a very important statement of commitment here, from the straightforward hosting of our efforts to the amplification, the maximizing through critical partnerships, and the ability to represent and partner with the White House administration on critical policy. So we're going to take you up on that. In more ways than you may even imagine. But you will be able to imagine them by the end of today.
Absolutely.
So we thank you. We thank you very much. That's a very meaningful commitment.
Thank you.
And thank you again for your leadership in this acting CEO role at a critical time in this country for service and for community solutions. Next, I turn the floor to our partner in this effort from the very beginning, our leader in this effort from before any of us thought about joining such an effort, because she was actually the designer of it also, I believe, and that is the Assistant to the President and the Director of the White House Domestic Policy Council, Melody Barnes.
Great. Thank you so much, Patty. And it is a pleasure to be back here with all of you all again, and happy. Sometimes I have come in and I get pulled back out, and I told my staff I want to be able to come to this meeting and stay for a little while. So I'm pleased that I'll be able to be with you for a while this morning. I'm also hoping to come back this afternoon, although my husband says I'm a victim of a planning syndrome that is a little overly optimistic, but yeah, you can imagine the conversations at our house. But I'm really thrilled to be here, and I want to thank you. Please don't. You have to understand that your efforts and your work are noticed by all of us here at the White House. And we know how much time you've put into it, the amount of effort and energy that you've put into coming up with the interim recommendations that you all have voted on and that you'll be building on in the months going forward. So I want to thank you for that. I want to always thank Patty for her tireless leadership, and I know what a wonderful job she does helping to move this all forward. So thank you for that. Before I go on, I do want to introduce one of my colleagues and a good friend, Tina Chen, who is Chief of Staff to the First Lady, who just walked in a few moments ago. So I'm pleased that Tina was able to come as well. The work that you all have been doing is something that obviously we started thinking about when we designed this council, but little did we know, even though we recognize the importance of connecting youth 16 to 24 to education and employment, we always knew that it was a problem, but we didn't know the times that would befall the nation in the many, many months since this council came into being. And I think that's what makes your interim recommendations, the work that you'll be drilling down on and thinking about in the months going forward, so critical and so important, because the times have changed significantly even over the course of the last 6 to 8 months. We've got communities that are doing much, much more with far, far less. State and local leadership that's really struggling under the budget crises that they face. Individuals that have just been devastated by the economic situation that's facing them, families who are sitting around their kitchen tables not knowing how to go forward, and in many cases, youth in those families being dramatically impacted with that as they are trying to move forward with their education, as they are trying to figure out ways to gain employment so that they can support themselves and help support their families. And I think that's why the work that you're doing is so important right now. And it's also shaped, obviously, the thinking that we've been doing in the White House around our agenda. As you know, the President has been out there pushing very, very hard on economic initiatives, particularly the American Jobs Act, that contains ideas that I think, even without you all focusing on that specifically, have really aligned with the kind of work that you're doing. The focus on youth employment, the focus on youth training are really critical to what we believe is the greater strengthening of our economy and making sure that young people are able to connect with institutions in civil society, that they are able to have the kind of future that they deserve, and that they can be vibrant parts of our communities and vibrant parts of our economy going forward. So I think the work that you're doing is critical at this time. We often call it, when Marta and Jonathan and I talk about it, there's this sweet spot now for the work and the recommendations of the council as you all continue to drill down on them and think about how to take these ideas that you have into a final product that will further support the kinds of initiatives and economic security initiatives that we're all working on. So thank you for your work. And again, we just believe that this is such a critical time for that. And certainly thank you for all the conversations you've had with people around the country, across sector, at a time when I think so many Americans are looking for ways to connect to community and connect to something that's larger than themselves and to solve the really difficult challenges before them. So we deeply appreciate that. And just as Tina was able to be here this morning, there are other members, senior members of my staff that will be coming later in the day, also members of the National Economic Council, Office of Management and Budget, and many of our federal agencies who want to be here to engage, to hear what you're doing, what you're thinking about, so that we will be able to find ways to work together as you all bring your recommendations to us in the future. So thank you again, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Melody. Well, we are running ahead, which is fabulous, because that leaves us more time for dialogue. And I think that probably the best thing for us to do is to go ahead and use that time and ensure that we have plenty of opportunity for questions for our next panel, which is an exciting one. We, as you know, are here because of a call by the President to all hands on deck. And Melody has indicated how serious this administration is about bringing their hands to play for this issue. Many of you represent institutions that have committed significant part of their efforts to these issues, but we recognize, and I have learned a great deal from some of our panelists, about the importance of not just institutions, but individuals in these solutions. And so we all decided together that it was important at this meeting to build our own awareness and advance our own knowledge of how everyone leads, about how all hands on deck are necessary to achieve the goals that we have for Opportunity Youth. And so leading a panel on that discussion will be Paula Boggs. And Paula Boggs is a council member and a remarkable woman on many levels, an Army veteran. She currently serves as Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary of Starbucks Coffee Company. Paula also serves as Secretary of the Starbucks Foundation and is a Washington State delegate to the American Bar Association. She has a long list of additional ways that she contributes to civic and public life. But I want to tell you one thing about Paula that she says she's only recently begun to acknowledge in her bio, and that is, as a fellow Seattle citizen, you can actually see Paula in her second job as a fabulous singer and songwriter, singing what I call rhythm and blues, what she says others call bluesy, folksy, jazzy, do it all. So I am hoping that she really rocks this panel. I was working on that this morning on the taxi. I'm not sure, but you all did laugh, which I appreciate. So. And let Paula take it from here. Paula?
Well, thank you, Patty, and good morning. I am incredibly excited to facilitate and support what I believe is an incredibly important conversation in the context of all hands on deck and building knowledge around the issues relating to this cohort of young people between the ages of 16 and 24 who are out of work and not in school. And to that end, as Patty was saying, the council has done a lot of tremendously good work over the past several months in framing this issue and gaining the insight and input from a variety of people and organizations. But as my good friend Maurice Miller pointed out a number of months ago, it's not worth the paper it's written on without the input of youth and understanding how families and communities come together to move the needle in helping more of our young people get work and get the education they need. This is an incredibly talented panel that you're about to hear from. There are 6 individuals on this panel, and each of them, in his or her own right, is what I would call a social entrepreneur. These are people, each of them, who sees around corners, people who go places that others have not been. And in that spirit, I will introduce this fabulous panel to you. But before I do that, in the spirit of our young social entrepreneurs who are on the panel today, and in the spirit of hopefully being relevant to you and our work being relevant to you, I thought I'd begin with a quote from Kanye West. and this is what it is. Quote, "As someone has said before, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I want to help change the way young people look at school and themselves, and hence the way they look at their futures." Close quote. And so with that, let me begin with Maurice Miller, who is to my immediate right. Maurice has a very extensive resume, as does every member of this panel, and so I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes of his resume, but I believe there's a longer version available for those who are listening and watching this morning. As social entrepreneur, Maurice is the founder and president of the National Family Independence Initiative, FII, which is a national anti-poverty organization that over a period of years has employed tremendous innovation in tackling so many of our country's social challenges and ills. He has been widely recognized as an expert, and he is based in California, but the reach of his organization is certainly national. To Maurice's right is Jorge Nieves. Jorge is a junior in high school. He hails from Denver and is a member of the Goodwill Mentoring Program. He has recently been accepted to the Goodwill Student Advisory Council as a way to volunteer in the community and become a Goodwill ambassador. He is accompanied here this morning, I'm told, by his mentor and your mother. Outstanding. And Jorge comes from Denver. There we are. Good morning. And Jorge and his family live in Denver. To his right is Ellie Flores, who hails from Los Angeles. And Ellie is a Youth Build graduate, which is a wonderful program that when you read his bio, you will learn more about. And he is a Public Allies alumnus, and we're going to hear more about Public Allies in a second. Ellie is currently a college student, and he works for another great organization called GRID Alternatives, and he is the founder, thus the entrepreneur's part of it. He is the founder of LEAD, a youth-serving organization based in the Los Angeles area. To Ellie's right is Karima Kanda Bar, another entrepreneur. She is a graduate of Youth Build and is currently the program manager pursuing her bachelor's degree in Biloxi, Mississippi. Karima has done a lot of work in the post-Katrina life of Mississippi, and I'm sure we will hear more about that as she speaks. To Karima's right is Bill Strickland, who is a legend in the social entrepreneurs community. He is the founder, president, and chief executive officer of the Pittsburgh-based, actually originally Pittsburgh-based, but now in a number of cities in the United States, Manchester Bidwell Corporation, and Manchester has many subsidiaries that focuses on a multidisciplinary approach, combining arts and learning to enable youth and young adults to foster a sense of belonging and hope in in urban communities, particularly, though he continues to branch out. Bill was a recipient of the Genius Award, MacArthur Award, about a decade ago, and continues to push the envelope in issues of social justice and empowerment. To Bill's right is last but certainly not least, Paul Schmitz, who is the founder and national CEO of Public Allies, which is a national nonprofit dedicated to supporting young people through full-time community service and leadership development programs. He currently also serves as co-chair of Voices for National Service and co-founder chair of the nonprofit Workforce Coalition, and hails from Wisconsin, where his organization is based. And so you see there is there is age diversity on our panel. There is also tremendous geographic diversity on our panel. And with that, I will turn to our three young people, starting with Jorge, to share your story.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, my name is Jorge Nieves. I'm 16 years old. I'm a junior in Denver School of the Arts. I'm in Denver, Colorado. And so like for my story.
Your story, you have empowered yourself to travel a path that will lead to you gaining a wonderful education, and at 16, you've got a year or two, but to youthful employment. So how did you get here?
So I was like raised in not the wealthiest place. And from middle school, I decided that, do something different. Just don't go to a regular school. Do something better for myself and for my family. So I decided to audition for an art school, try something that I would like and know and make my family proud and generation to make our family just look better, and fit in. And I auditioned for Denver School of the Arts, got accepted, and realized that I want to make a difference in my community, like show some of my friends that are not don't see the real world, like that are stuck in the community that they are in. Let's say where I'm from is Montbello, and it's very separated from the city. Mm-hmm. So we don't have the best resources or anything that normal kids get to use. And just to show them that, you can make a difference just by staying in school and just pursuing your dreams. That's all.
Now, Jorge, your mother and your family, your community, really played an important role in helping you not only get in to Denver Performing Arts School in the first place, but helping you stay there and be successful. So if you could share with the council and our audience, what were some of those things that your mom did, and, other members of your closest community, what they did for you to help you stay on track?
So my mom played the biggest part in me wanting to continue on and try to succeed. She told me always stay in school. School is the best thing you can get. Also, my mentor, Nate Green, he told me, reach for the stars. You'll make it, because I know that your enthusiasm will make people like you, because you're such a likable person. Definitely Goodwill played the biggest part in my life. I would say that they changed my life. I say that, and it's only been a year. They definitely got me more communications with people that will help me in the future. My school also played a big part, because just making me feel happier and I guess make me smarter, make me better for the world, and
No, thank you for that. I'm going to move to Ellie now, and Ellie, you have a tremendously interesting story. Why don't you share some of that
Okay.
with the council?
Like was mentioned, I'm Ellie Flores, proudly from Los Angeles, California, home of the Lakers, which I hope this lockout ends pretty soon. But I thank you for having me here today, and it is an honor for me to be here. Stopped my life for right now, and actually got some sleep last night for the first time in a very long time, so it was good. I will start, I guess. And I don't have a quote from Kanye West, though. That was good.
But you know who he is.
I know who he is, yes, most definitely. I might be going to a concert pretty soon. But I will start with a quote that I think sort of sums what my attitude is towards everything I do now. And the quote is, "Mistakes are a part of being human. Appreciate your mistakes for what they are, precious life lessons that can only be learned the hard way. Unless it is a fatal mistake, which at least others can learn from." And I believe that ever since I started in the Youth Build program, and the reason why I ended up in the Youth Build program, and you probably could read it further in the bio, but it's like a typical story, right, of a young person, a kid growing up in a under-resourced, underprivileged community. By the abandonment of his father, then has, like you hear many times, mother has to spend so much time working out in the field while you're left in your house with your older brother and your younger sister. I mean, what else do you have to do but to go outside and play? And unfortunately, in our communities, not everybody who plays outside is very nice, right? And so because of that, my life, took a couple of different roads, ended up in a situation where the school districts in my city did not want me in any school anymore. It was, I guess my file was pretty thick, and the dean didn't have time to read it fully. So they did not want me in the school. And so, but I want to talk more about like what's currently happening in the future, right? Because I think I can go on for a very long time about my past, right? Now my future revolves around solution-based social justice, college, and all that, right? One of the, I think, key organizations that I'm honored to be in a panel with Paul Schmitz is my experience through Public Allies and the idea of engaging up-and-coming leaders, right, and giving them the extra push, right? Because I believe Youth Build gave me the idea of, okay, here's your high school diploma, pursue post-secondary education. But it doesn't stick yet, It's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, all right, I'll take a class here and there. And I think Public Allies gave this push of putting me in a room with people that look like me, and then they have college degrees, right? And I'm like, dude, I swear I thought this was like, some rich kid thing, where people get degrees and all these things. And they're talking about UCLA and Dartmouth and like all these universities that I've never heard of, weird foreign names, right? But these people look like me, right? And these people still spoke like me, but just had a different attitude of life and had a different attitude of education. And for that reason, my outlook of education became one of actually being proud of being called a nerd, and before that, it was, if you're a nerd, then you're not cool, right? Now I'm telling my son, hey, dude, be a nerd, be a nerd, and I think transforming the nerd into being cool, meaning like taking pride in education and having a college degree, especially looking at the statistics of Latinos and Black college graduates being so low. I feel that by my success in college, I'm actually challenging that statistic, right? And I'm challenging this norm, right? Quote unquote. And then in terms of my future, right? A lot of people always say, you are the future. You are the future. Young people are the future. And I'm glad that this council looks at us more as an asset, because I would challenge folks and I say, I think I'm the now. And I think that by telling me you are the future, you're trying to hold my leadership and conceal my leadership. And Dorothy knows me well, that my leadership just cannot be concealed. So, so,
I like that.
I think I sum it up with what I'm doing now, right? Which is, I do have some experience in working internationally as well in countries, and you probably read it in the bio, in Israel, Bosnia, Herzegovina as well, by way of working with the King Center in Atlanta, Georgia, as well as the Communities Without Boundaries, which is now based here in DC. And that's part of also my future goal, is really taking my leadership into other countries that might not have the resources like we have in this room, But as individuals, we can go there and make a huge impact, right? Also, started my own nonprofit, like it was mentioned before, and the nonprofit is Leadership Through Empowerment, Action, and Dialogue, right? And that sums up what we're trying to do, is we start at the leadership phase of how do we build up a leader, and how do we empower that leader, that young leader, to own their leadership, to own their own success. Because we don't want a situation where if the nonprofit comes into a community, and if the nonprofit eventually doesn't get any funding, then the leadership dies in that community, right? So we hope that even if we don't exist tomorrow, the leaders will exist. Then moving it into action, moving it into actually community organizing, community building, and then eventually, right, once we get everybody on the table like this, we can then finally have a dialogue. But if we're not at the table, we can't have a dialogue, right? So my outlook on my future now, right, is completely different than you probably would have asked me like 5-6 years ago. Now, I mean, I don't dream anymore. It's more of just like, if I have an idea, I just start doing something towards it, right? So that's sort of like my view on my future now. And I feel that eventually, to be in politics, right? Which as I'm hearing more of the Republican Democrat debates, and I'm like, dude, they're not moving nothing forward, right? But to eventually be in a position where I can, suggest meaningful legislation that actually has real legislation and real solutions within them, and I like the idea of simplifying solutions, because I think that, and I wrote something down where disconnected youth are continuing to be disconnected because the solutions are disconnected from the issues. And so we as young people see very quickly through the smoke, very quickly. And if we see through the smoke very quickly and we don't see the connection between the solution and the issues, we will disconnect. Because our attitudes are, and I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a young person, is imagine the type of energy that we have at this age, right? And if the energy is not harvested and utilized in a certain way, we will use it some way, somehow. And it's unfortunate for the reasons why we have such a high rate of gangs and such a high rate of all these other things. But it's that energy that we're not captivating yet and utilizing. So I do thank Youth Build, I do thank Public Allies for offering me a way to use that. And now I'm here sitting in front of you. So thank you.
Thank you, L.A. You know, you you said a number of really important things, and I'm gonna, after I get to Karima, I'm gonna come back because I want to follow up on owning leadership, for example. But before I do that, I want to hear, and I want the council and our audience to hear from Karima.
Good morning. Just to go over a little bit about my past and not to go too far into it, but I come from a long line of or generational families that were on welfare. So I'm third generation welfare, or I was third generation welfare recipient. And for me, the things that we're discussing right now in my community were unattainable. Back when I was younger, there wasn't a strong emphasis on education. There wasn't a strong emphasis on community outreach. A lot of the families in the area were low income, so everyone was focused on their own issues, so focused on their own issues that they didn't worry about helping out the community or helping out the neighbor, helping out, other people in the area. But I began to have a change in mentality when I started the Youth Build program. So Youth Build for me was just basically opened up my eyes to all the worldly issues that was going on. So much so that when I was focusing on the worldly issues and other community services, that the issues that I was having became so small, so insignificant, that if I help with the worldly issues and the community-based things that are going on right now, I'm in turn becoming a better person, becoming a leader amongst my community, thus taking care of those issues that I was having, the problems that was going on in my household. So after graduating from Youth Build, I was introduced to the Community for National Services through AmeriCorps, and I was afforded the opportunities to travel and help out with the Katrina Outreach Project. So that was the first time that I left Illinois, and I was so excited about it. And when we went into Biloxi and Gulfport, and I saw that there were so many that were homeless, and there were so many that were hungry, and not by fault of their own. So for me, who after high school, I call it a couch hopper, where I didn't have a place to stay, so I would couch hop to different places. These people didn't even have places that they can go to. So I think that it opened up my eyes to that it's real. These situations are real. So I didn't have an opportunity to dwell on everything that was going on in my life. When I first joined Youth Build and AmeriCorps, I had the opportunity to meet people like me who had a lot of issues, but had a lot of leadership development and space for growth. And through the love and respect of both of those programs, we were allowed to utilize what Ellie said was that energy and channel that into something that became community outreach, things that build our communities better, make better leaders in our programs, and also helped in our situations. I was able to go back to college. AmeriCorps, I received a scholarship and educational award, Benny Siegel Award, to go back to college where I did not qualify for financial aid at the time, and continue my education, which I thought that was something I would never be able to do because of my financial situation. And immediately after receiving my associates, I wanted to go back to school and get my bachelor's, but still being on welfare, there were situations that I was in where financially I could not afford it. So my husband and I were both students at the time, and going into college, if you were getting any type of finances, then you were not able to receive other services. So I had 2 children at the time, and I could not put them in daycare. So not being able to put them in daycare, I was not allowed to go back to school. So again, there were just so many stumbling blocks. It was like, oh, okay, I'm doing great. And then, oh, well, there's a stop. Oh, okay, I'm doing great. And then there's another, just keep throwing blocks in the way. And I began to get discouraged with everything that I was doing. And I'm like, oh, Youth Build's done for great. And now we're with AmeriCorps. But again, without the support of the community, I would not have been able to go back to school. I would not have been able to be in the position where I am now to get the job that I have now, which is in Biloxi, Mississippi, with program managing the Katrina outreach. And I'm just thankful for that. Just being able to help someone else out of their situation, a similar situation to where I am now. And like I said, when there's a change in mentality, it's not a focus on the stumbling blocks that are in my way right now, whereas I can do things like this and begin to talk to the community about what's going on so that person behind me won't get penalized for going to school. They won't get penalized for having children. They won't get penalized for trying to build up their community, whereas the communities around them are saying, you know what, let's open up a low-income daycare center. Let's go ahead and try to get someone in college that will be able to run these daycare centers. Let's work with the Youth Build program so that they receive stipends so they can continue to go to school. Let's work with AmeriCorps where they can volunteer and get some of these services and still be able to go to college. So that's my goal right now. So at the time, I was able to open up a daycare center. My children attended the daycare center. There are other children in the communities that were afforded to be able to attend the daycare center. So in our community, we were allowed 15 college students that went to school where their children were allowed to come to the daycare center for free through a low-income grant. So that took care of a lot of issues that we had in the community where they didn't have that before because of everything of the devastation of Katrina. Beyond that, I would just think to say that from now, I'm able to receive my bachelor's. I'm still currently in school online. I also, like I said, I program manage a Youth Build program, Youth Build Gulf Coast, who's managed under International Relief and Development. Through International Relief and Development, we receive grants so that it's no longer a home-based daycare center, but other services so that there are more students in the area that will receive services. We went from being able to serve 32 youth to now it's up to 64. So in the area, there are 2 Youth Build programs, Youth Build Gulf Coast and Climb Youth Build in the area that work closely with AmeriCorps State and also AmeriCorps and CCC, where they're just strictly building the communities in the area and also with Habitat for Humanities. And that's just been a great opportunity for me, and I wouldn't have been able to receive that without Youth Build, without AmeriCorps. I was talking with Robert last night, and he asked me, well, what changed your mind about doing this service for the youth? And I said, you know what, before, when I lived in Chicago, national disasters was something that I seen on TV. It wasn't real for me. I'd never been in a tornado. I'd never been in a hurricane. I'd never seen things like that happen. But being able to be in the situation and see what was going on and made that real for me, I was able to say, you know what, I do want to continue service. I do want to go help whatever I can do. And that made my situation smaller for me based on this is a worldly issue. We have to deal with this as a worldly issue, and it's just been life-changing.
Thank you, Karima. Thanks to all of our youth speakers. I'm going to invite the balance of our speakers to speak to some of the themes we've heard from our youth speakers this morning. In each of your cases, you have been helped by programs, one or more programs, but importantly, there has been important support for you from your families, from peers, I heard the theme of peer mentoring, and from others in your community who have helped lifted you up. Maurice, these are themes that I know are very dear to you. And if you could thus speak to, given the work you have done, how those sorts of themes play into the success of a young person.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank all three of you. It was really great. It's really inspiring. And then I could relate to some of it. I was raised by, again, a single mom who wasn't able to come to the White House with me. So I really appreciate that is actually happening. I think it isn't just my work. I think it is sort of how all of us have these kind of unspoken heroes, and often they are our parents, our friends, peers. I think most of us, if you've had any kids and you've been parents, that you know that you have a major role in what happens to your kids. But it isn't just you. You also realize that it's who you surround your kid with. All their family, all the friends, everybody, because it sets a tone. It sets what the community is really about. And so this issue of disconnected youth isn't just about the individuals. It isn't just about the family. It really is a community. And then it's a society, whether it honors you or not. And I think we're more about the society, but underneath all that, there is the sense of community. There's a sense of family that is really important. And often it goes unsaid. I think what gets the recognition are the programs. And we tend to do that because those are things that, quote, it seems like we in this type of situation can influence the most. Those are the structures. You need a structure to do it. And yet, in growing up and in hearing your stories, that it was really clear that behind the scenes, you had to have this other stability, these other cornerstones, so there had to be other people. And that I think John's survey also speaks to the fact that people want other people. They want relationships, and that's really huge. And the programs need to be there, but it really is in service to the young people that actually have these other building blocks. And that I know what the council and what this panel is about is really to recognize that this isn't, all the solutions don't come from the programs themselves, that it really does come from all of the support systems, and that we need everybody on board. We need the parents, we need the friends, we need the entire communities. And I want to share one story, which is sort of my vision, and certainly set my vision. I'm on the board of a very large foundation in California, and one of the things that happened after the tsunami that happened in Japan was that on the north coast there was a lot of damage, and so our foundation was going to go fund up in the northwest California area. And while we were up there, we were hosted on the reservation by the Yurok tribe. And in visiting them, we start learning the story of what had been happening to them over the last probably 6 to 8 years, which is that I think it was 6 to 8 years before they said they had realized that in their tribe there were now only 12 people that knew the language and knew the history. So their tribe was dying. And in that realization, it was like, that we're going to lose ourselves. And so what ended up happening is then there were no programs. It was just everybody started coming back together again and realizing this, and that they really had to come back together and revitalize their culture. And in that next period of time, that there was a heavy concentration of trying to do that. And what had been happening before was that the young people had been falling away. One of their most sacred dances was the brush dance, and that at those dances, then the young people would show up, but they'd show up and there'd be guns going off, there'd be alcohol and bottles being thrown, and it was it was a very difficult situation. And they said, when we started really concentrating on ourselves as a community, when we really started looking at our youth as the future of our community, when there was that sort of energy that really focused on that our youth started coming back. And so our foundation wanted to hear from the youth leaders, because I think we had the same type of thing. So we went to an auditorium and we asked some of the young people to come up and, could you tell us this transformation, what's been going on? And so these young people kind of came up that we had spoken to. And, so it was like, okay, so what happened? And the young people were just standing there, and then all of a sudden they said, we feel very uncomfortable being up here without our elders. And all of a sudden it was like, whatever. And so we were like, this is about the youth, right? And youth leadership. And they're over there, no. And so they looked at their elders, and he said, you have to come up. And the elders know, well, it's okay, right? But, you know, finally, one of the parents came up, and the youth said, now we can talk. Now, that's a kind of respect you don't see all the time. That cross-generational respect is huge, and that is really the vision that we have to have. You know, that is all hands on deck, and that realization that you do need each other. So for me, that kind of speaks to what we really should be shooting for.
No, thank you, Maurice. Paul, you have in your writings and speeches spoken a lot about the need for diversity at the table, and to solve our most challenging problems, we have to look at them through new lenses. If you could speak to that, particularly in the context of our conversation this morning.
Sure. Well, I do think that we often look for leadership in all the wrong places, and we don't look in the communities themselves. And I think that we have a core conviction at Public Eyes that everyone leads, and it's based on the notion that leadership's an action everyone can do, not a position a few people can hold, that everyone can step up in some way to make a difference in their homes and their communities on the causes they care about. But often people think it's someone else who's going to come in, or they look outside. And I think that what we find is there's this tremendous untapped resource in all of our communities. And I think the three young people who just spoke are examples of that. They're not the young people that most people would look to and say, oh, here's where the leadership's going to come from. We look at the elite schools, we look at the children of people in privilege, we look at people who haven't had the barriers, rather than seeing that the people with barriers often have the relevant experience and passion and everything they need to really make a big difference. I spoke 2 days ago to an ally here in DC who's working with young people in foster care through a program here called Best Kids. And she was talking about how she totally sees that she's only been there just over a month, but already she sees how she sees these young people and what to do with them totally different, and sees things none of the other staff get. And the reason is because she spent 15 years in foster care. And so her lens on what these young people need, her lens on what these young people's experiences are, is totally different than the other kind of professional people serving them. And she says she sees signals they don't see from these young people. And I think that in our experience, you know, there are so many young people who have these experiences, but I think to get them there, I think the comments that everyone made, and especially Maurice's comments at the end, you know, I take my own experience, and the reason why I'm so passionate about these disconnected young people and young people who face these challenges is when I was Jorge's age, I was not a good kid like Jorge. I was a drug addict, a drug dealer. I got kicked out of 6th grade. I barely made it out of high school. I didn't go to college right after high school. And like Ellie, later in life I embraced being a nerd. That's why I did the bow tie. Had to embrace this new element like Ellie. I mean, we're connected in that way. But but from my own experience, you know, I was saying to someone this morning, the inpatient and outpatient treatments I was in, the therapy I was in, the groups that I went to, the school counselor, all of them probably try and claim me as an outcome. But the reality is each of them was necessary, but none of them were sufficient. And it was the relationships that got me through. It wasn't any one of those that got me through. If I hadn't, in my case, gone through an inpatient treatment center, I don't know that the rest of it would have been possible. But if it had ended there, there's no way I would have made it. And they were caring, respectful, supportive, and relevant relationships. They challenged and nurtured. They held me accountable when I needed it. And those relationships are what carried me through. And I think so often we get into this idea of what I call linear causality, that a single bullet program in one community with one kid is going to transform their lives. And that's rarely how it happens. It's a system of things that we have to surround a young person with, and some of it's going to take, some of it's not, but it's the relationships they build through that get them through. And so I just believe that we have to think about, not get so connected. I think people who haven't had these experiences always think, oh, if we give them the right program and the right intervention, that'll work. And it's really about surrounding people with the right relationships and surrounding them with a community of support. And some of that will happen through programs, some of it will happen outside. And the amazing thing that young people always find is, why doesn't my pastor and my principal at my school and the head of the youth organization that I go to, why don't they even know each other? We have this total disconnection in our communities between all the different people that young people interface with every day of their lives. They don't talk to each other. And they're all each claiming that young person is an outcome. Yet they have no connection with each other. And so I just think that as we look at this issue and we look at our young people, we have to recognize that they are assets. There's a young one working down the hallway here at the White House who was a 19-year-old single mom in community college when she came into our program, and today she's a lawyer here at the White House. No one goes to community colleges to find single moms and says, we have a training program to get you into the White House as a lawyer. People don't go looking for the Ellies of the world and say, hey, you should be one of the people leading clean technology work in Los Angeles. And so I think we have to look differently at who are leaders, and then we have to recognize to transform young people's lives, it's not individual programs or individual interventions, it's communities of support and relationships.
Thanks, Paul. Bill, you are Mr. Community, and as I understand it, it all began with ceramics. And if you could share with us your observations on the power of the family member, the neighborhood, the community in enabling a pathway for as many of our youth as possible to the education they need and the job that will enable them to be full and citizens that are contributing to our nation.
Thanks. I'll be brief as well, but I want to. I'm glad Maurice and Paul opened up by talking a little bit about their autobiography. I think that's very important to share with young people. In my case, I got into college as a probationary student because I flunked the Scholastic Aptitude Test because nobody had ever showed me the test. So they put this test in front of me. It's multiple choice. I mark it up. I flunk the test. I get into the University of Pittsburgh as a probationary student. Graduated with honors. Now I'm a trustee of the place. And I was a commencement speaker, and I got up and said, 13,000 people, don't give up on the poor kids. They might end up being a commencement speaker. And that story, I think, is what we heard today, in effect.
Yes.
Now, here's this kid, probationary student, wins the MacArthur Fellowship. And in my class was Stephen Hawking, the greatest physicist since Albert Einstein. Don't judge the book by the cover. These young people come in many forms and many configurations, but the universal theme is, given an opportunity that is predictable and reliable, they will respond dramatically, as we've seen this morning. The good news is this is a solvable problem. We can correct this. The thing that I realized when I was with John Bon Jovi in Newark was the kids are anxious to be a part of this conversation. They were excited to sit with us. They were thoughtful. They had good ideas. And Mike was there. This was actually his deal. We shared that day together. And I was overwhelmed by the eloquence of these young people who supposedly aren't eloquent. Well, they're very eloquent if you give them the opportunity to tell you what's on their minds. So I think a big part of the opportunity is to figure out mechanisms where we can be in touch with these guys on a regular and sustained basis beyond testimony. Testimony is great, but that's the beginning point, not the end point. The second thing that I know, because I've lived this, it's about community at the end of the day, and it's about place, physical place. These young people want to belong somewhere, and we've got to create opportunities for them to belong somewhere. Places that are predictable, reliable, and sustainable. Just having programs that, touch these young people without the opportunity for them to realize the great excitement that they bring to the conversation won't get it. It won't work. We tried that. The 60s and the 70s are replete with poverty programs that spent millions, and the poverty programs created problems that were worse than the ones they were trying to address. What we need to do is to take the innovation and the competence and the knowledge base that we have and to build demonstration projects based on things that work now that we've heard today and things that we think have the potential to work. I think that could be a great legacy, not only for this commission, but for the president, who clearly brought us together around that opportunity. Thirdly, one of the things I'm very, very proud of in my own work, and I brag about this, we happen to be in the highest crime rate neighborhood in Pittsburgh. There's a murder a month, including last week, but not in my center. And we have no metal detector, no cameras, no anti-theft system, and we haven't lost a screwdriver in 26 years in the highest crime rate neighborhood in Pittsburgh. The school I went to is 4 blocks away, and it has steel doors and metal detectors, and the garbage cans are chained to the wall in the same neighborhood. It's environment, it's values, it's hope. All these things are not just adjectives, they are realities. And I think they're also opportunities. What makes that even more compelling in my case is, literally, we have built 5 of these things around the country. Not one of them has a metal detector. Not one of them's ever had a fight or a drug or alcohol incident. You can't be that lucky. No one's that lucky. It's values, it's attitude, it's security, it's stability, all the things that young people, our own kids need, these kids need. And they're sitting here telling you what the outcomes are. If you provide them with the resources, they'll do the rest of the work. So I think that we have a great opportunity to show vividly that these young people who were declared liabilities are actually assets, and that we need to move them to the top line of the social balance sheet, and it can be done. In my own experience, I've taken welfare moms, 2nd and 3rd generation, and they're doing analytical chemistry in 10 months, for real. And so what I realized is, it's not about my ability to teach chemistry, it's about my ability to create an environment where chemistry is taught. So if we can grab onto that, not just in my case or Paul's case or Marie's case, but for many cases that we've discovered along the way, I think that we have an opportunity to do something very significant. And finally, the nagging question that I've pestered Patty with since the day I signed up for this is, what is going to be the opportunity to carry forward what we have discovered? They're sitting here telling you what the outcomes could be if you give them a chance. Now, unfortunately, what we've all learned is public policy is resistant to change. And so we're going to have to be around for a long time in one form or another to be able to deliver the resources and the opportunities that these young people display today. You're the answer, not the problem. That's the takeaway for me today.
Thank you. Well, we do have built into our schedule a few minutes for a question and answer from the audience. Yes, Jim.
I'll go first if that's okay, and I'd like to hear from the 3 young folks. You heard some, well, first of all, thank you for your sharing, and I think you probably heard some pretty compelling stuff I did from your 3 other panelists who we get to hear from all the time, so I only want to hear from you guys right now. But, Paul mentioned, great programs, not enough, it's the programs and the relationships. Mm-hmm. And if you could each maybe take a minute and just kind of share the connection between the programs, whether it's Youth Build or Goodwill, and what that led to in terms of the relationships that are important to you now.
And you're going to spend a minute.
Okay.
Right.
So, Goodwill to me definitely got me out in the world and introduced me to a lot of people that I, without a program, wouldn't have met by myself. I would have thought, I can't, it's, there's never a way I'll meet anybody like you guys if it wasn't for Goodwill. Because it makes you feel important. They make you feel important. They make you feel like a person. They don't make you, you're like, oh, you're just a kid. No, you're someone. You're going to be someone in life. And definitely Goodwill that made me feel that way. And I thank you, Jim, for the opportunity you gave me.
That's Jim Gibbons, CEO of Goodwill Industries.
It's probably his mentor in the room who has given him much more opportunity.
And great question. I do think I could just talk about my experience with one specific mentor. At the Youth Build program, the founder of La Causa Youth Build in East Los Angeles, where I went to, his name is Alejandro Covarrubias, a PhD. Now he's a professor at UCLA and Cal State LA. But when I was there, everybody knew he was, the boss, whatever, right? But he never liked to be referred to as executive director, none of those titles, especially not by the young people. When he came by, he would be like, call me Alex or call me Alejandro, whatever. And then I made up my own name for him. And then he was fine with that too. So I think that the important relationship that I had with him that even goes till today is that he would step out of his role, of his position. He'll step out of his, looking at budgets and foundations and all that, and he'll just become a human for a couple hours a day, a human with us, right? So we saw the human behind the work and the human behind the mission. And Alejandro became a friend, became a mentor, even hosting like pay-per-view boxing matches at his house, right? And we're all into boxing. So doing things out of the norm of what your position entails is probably the most meaningful relationship I've had up to date. After he left La Causa and is now a professor at UCLA, he actually calls me to do lectures for his classes sometimes. So continuing on these things and him valuing, and I strongly believe you should look into him as a potential asset for you all, and Paul Schmidt knows him. He understands the value of being an asset, of treating someone as an asset and not just telling them they're an asset, but challenging them to utilize their skills and talents to showcase themselves as an asset. And because of that, my relationship with him is pretty strong, and it's been one of the most meaningful interpersonal relationships I think I've had so far.
Thank you, Ellie. Karima?
Similar to Ellie's story, a lot of the relationships that I've encountered with the Youth Build program, or not just Youth Build, but with AmeriCorps as well. My mentor was Suzanne Fitzgerald. She is currently the president CEO of Youth Build McLean County, and it was basically she had a staff where they didn't utilize that ageism syndrome, like big me, little you. We were afforded the opportunities to be on councils. We were able to change policies and basically mold what we felt like our program should be, which I think is the foundation of what Youth Build USA does across the country. So we were empowered through our voices, through being able to make decisions, and also being taught at the same time how to utilize the different resources in the community. So I would never have known about AmeriCorps if it wasn't for Youth Build. I would never have been able to go into other services because I wasn't knowledgeable of it. So just being able to learn the different avenues, what we call networking, through our community, given the opportunity to utilize all of those resources that we already have available to us. And through that, I was empowered and able to say, you know what, they've shown me the way a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and continue that and help others utilize those same resources to get what they need out of the community. And I think that through our connection, now the community really knows Youth Build. Through that connection, the community knows AmeriCorps and they embrace it. So now our pastors in our community, other people in our community, our stores, our State Farm was a big company in our community, works with the community through our outreach ministries, our outreach programs with Youth Build, and other volunteer services with AmeriCorps, and now working as one instead of each having to search out each individual resource separately. So I think that that played a strong role in molding the community to work with those same resources.
This has been a tremendously engaging and informative panel. We've heard a number of very, very core themes throughout our time together. Programs are important, but not always sufficient. It often takes a caring family member, a community, to really help make a difference in a young person's path to success. Our three young speakers today have been shining examples of how when you bring great programs together with strong families and communities, magic can happen. And so in the spirit of Ellie's work internationally, I will end with a quote from former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, another K. Quote, "Young people should be at the forefront of global change and innovation. Empowered, they can be key agents for development and peace. If, however, they are left on society's margins, all of us will be impoverished. Let us ensure that all young people have every opportunity to participate fully in the lives of their societies." Thank you all for being a great panel, and thank you all for listening this morning.
I think for all of us, you helped us with our awareness and our knowledge. You're not going anywhere, right? You're staying till this morning, or do you have to leave, Ellie?
Well, I know we're all catching flights today.
Okay, good. So, so even if you can't stay in the room for the whole time, I would ask the three of you for something that Ellie promised, which is, he said that you were able to see through the smoke.
Yes.
And one of the biggest fears of this council is we're here in a leadership position. You need to hold us to being able to do, as Paul says, perform as leaders, turn to you as leaders. And when you see smoke, you need to help us and let us know, because we don't always mean to create the smoke.
Yeah.
But we do look to you as leaders that can help us distinguish where we're creating something that is an asset for you, recognizing you as an asset, and where we're creating smoke. So we're going to count on you to do that. Okay?
Okay. And Dorothy knows I will.
Yes, I understand.
I will make sure to let you know.
So my story with Ellie is that I first met him in 2007 when he helped me see life in his neighborhood, in his programs, in his part of LA. And it was an experience that built my knowledge and awareness then, and it's great to see the things that you've done in the last 4 years. It's fabulous. Good. Thank you all very much.